Welcome back to episode 2 of my Blood DK 0 to Hero. In the first episode, I tackled 4 of the 8 new dungeons, and this week, I'll take on the other half, and even try some plus 10s at the end of the video. But that's for later. For now, we have our vault to open.
What's in the box? What's in the fucking box?
Okay, so the second I saw the vault, I realized, whoops, I accidentally cheated. You see, the guidelines I set up for myself for this challenge meant I'm not allowed to do organized raids for gear. But I needed a split alt for my guild, so I thought I'll just use my Death Knight, since he won't roll in gear anyways. But I wasn't thinking about Vault. I could just ignore these choices, but I have my 2 best trinkets and I want them. And it's my video, so I can do what I want. So both of these trinkets are ranked as S tier, but which one to choose? While tier lists and Blood Mallet rank Gaze slightly higher, my Sims came back in favor of Guidon, both in AoE and single target. So why is this? I don't currently have an unused trinket, and Guidon provides a haste buff on a 90-second cooldown, which lines up perfectly with Dancing Rune Weapon. This is relevant because our Dancing Rune Weapon windows have a specific rotation that benefits heavily from haste. During Dancing Rune Weapon, we want to first immediately apply Blood Plague via Blood Boil, which is copied by Dancing Rune Weapon for 3 stacks of the Plague. We then spam the hell out of Vampiric Strike, only pausing to Death Strike for health or to dump runic power. The more haste, the more Vampiric Strikes, and the more Vampiric Strikes, the better. This differs from a regular rotation, in which we Blood Boil much more often with Boiling Point procs and to prevent it from capping on charges. We also want to make sure we're in Death and Decay, but during San Lan, we don't bother unless we get a Crimson Scourge proc. So we're going with the Guidon, or maybe Guidon, the French word for handlebars. Before jumping into keys, I completed a delve, using a Beacon of Hope to guarantee a map, and likewise a heroic piece at the end of the delve. You can get a Beacon of Hope each week from completing 3 Nightmare hunts. First, I'm headed to a +6 Mysarus Caverns. Similar to Pit of Sauron, Mysarus Caverns has a very open space dungeon layout. Additionally, just like Pit of Sauron, we have to go around freeing 6 prisoner camps. Or, sorry, Halazi's little kittens.
Oh, princess. Princess, where are you?
Ew. Why does he have to say this? Anyways, regardless of if you go left or right here, I recommend 2 main things in this dungeon. First, make sure to incorporate these huts into your run because they have soup inside. And I love soup!
Oh, and that's soup!
Second, avoid Hex Guardians at all costs. These guys have 3 abilities, each more annoying than the last. First off, they pulse fire damage constantly while in combat. They also throw out multiple Dispel debuffs at a time, which are super deadly and hard to deal with. Lastly is the Magma Surge cast, which deals a lot of unavoidable damage in a line from the target. Something true about many players, and pugs in particular, is that people love to run around, just for the fun of it. People cannot sit still, and as a result, mechanics like this beam are regularly run into the group. And the kicker is that these guardians are always surrounded by a gaggle of warding masks who will spam cast Seer. This is more than enough of a reason to avoid them, and you don't ever really have to go super far out of your way to do so. Quick little plug, I have pug-friendly routes drawn up for all 8 new dungeons and a video on my channel going through each of the pulls. Much like many of these initial lower keys, trash mostly just falls over, but don't worry, if you're the kind of sicko who likes to watch me suffer, just wait until I get to my +10s. The first boss, Daddy Muragen, is severely simplified with her Death's Advance ability. If full magical immunity from AMS wasn't strong enough, BDKs also have access to forced movement and knockback immunity. I use this to negate the knockback from the Tank Buster, which is relevant for uptime and boss positioning. If you don't have a charge of Death's Advance up, try to get knocked back into a wall. Also, beware that if you use up both DA charges, that you are susceptible to the bird's knock-up.
I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky.
They remove the dot from the ghost to the next boss, so she is now a joke. But now we have the worst part of the dungeon, the bridge. The main issue with this bridge are the balls that bounce down it. These deal massive damage in a large radius and knock you back if you get hit directly. This can and will hit you off the bridge if you are too close to the edge. The last boss also has a Tank Buster knockback that can be immune with Death's Advance, and during the intermission, we want to use all our CC options to grip, blind, stun, and interrupt these malignant souls. Additionally, we can use AMS to run through these ghosts, or remove the root with Wraithwalk if we end up running into them. Another successful key, but unfortunately no loot. Wanting to turn things up a notch, I headed to a +9 key. And what better key than this Nexus-Point Xenas? Probably any other key. The red flags were instant right away. While waiting for the pally to get to the dungeon, he apparently died while helping someone with a world quest? Ruh-oh. Well, it happens. Surely things will be fine. Oh, no. Oh god, no.
You can literally see how hard he's lagging in real time.
I mean, just watching him walk around makes me laugh. This section was awful. These circuit seers and flux engineers will empower nearby barrels and explode them after a few seconds.
But with McDonald's Wi-Fi over here, the barrels weren't dying nearly fast enough.
1, 2, 3.
Additionally, people kept back pulling extra packs into our poles. I'm just gonna blame it all on our pally friend here. I mean, seriously, what is he doing out there? Is this the first ranged ret paladin? People were actually doing the mechanics great here, though watching the pally do them was basically beat for beat from this Captain Grimm video about classic mechanics.
Just like we practiced, Derek. Everything has been losing up to this big man. Forward, quick.
The mechanic here is just to stand in the pink lines whenever they become blue, as that allows you to remove them, and you want to stand in the intersection to remove as many as possible. If you're colorblind, good luck. Additionally, I don't think these guys realized the orbs has a decent sized knockback and were pushed into death lasers. On a +9, trash can actually start to really truck, so I recommend keeping things to a double pull here. Also, do not pull 2 heralds like I did here. These guys basically don't move at all and pulls heavy AoE damage. Pulling 2 at the same time doesn't allow cleave, it just endangers the group.
That's quite big. Impressive.
Instead, pull one of the heralds with the Grand Nullifier pack and the other herald with the Dread Flail up ahead. This next boss is super easy, but this week's affix is so annoying since you have to kill it or it'll give damage reduction to enemies. The problem is that the damage amp during the intermission only increases your damage done to the boss, so if the affix is up during this phase, the whole phase just might be wasted. I actually hate this affix just in general. It's just a ghost T-posing and chasing after you relentlessly. It makes me really uncomfortable. The rest of the trash is pretty chill, with just 3 lingering images to kill in order to spawn Lithraxian. If you didn't know, the intermission for this fight just wants you to interrupt the real Lithraxian, who is identified by his baldness. We timed the key, but no loot for me, unfortunately. Looking for my next key, I saw a group requesting a big Cholongus tank. Hey, that's me. I was greeted properly with my full name and title, and feeling great headed into this +7 seat. The first pull went super smooth, and with such high damage and Lust still rolling, I felt confident enough to chain pull 2 subjugators together. Also, quick note that AMS will prevent the debuff from the subjugators. Something I see a lot of tanks struggle with is these Shadow Guard champions, who will stack a bleed on you with Relentless Pursuit. However, this only triggers if you're not in melee range with them. So if you pull them from too far away or run away to chain pull something else, that's when you get the bleed. Additionally, later on, Umbral War Adepts will use Void Bash, which knocks you away and therefore triggers the charge. As a Death Knight, when Void Bash is about to go off, we want to use Death's Advance to negate the knockback and therefore the bleed. Headed on to this first boss, I was in store for at least 4 heart attacks and 2 brain aneurysms. Zoral will spawn 2 oozes at a time that slowly march toward him, wiping the group if they reach. While the boss's health was melting, the oozes were just being ignored. The problem is that once the boss reaches full energy, he will rapidly pull them towards him. This became especially intense on the second set of oozes, as it became a race towards killing the boss before he ate the slimes. While we won by the hair of our chins, it was a little concerning to see the tunnel vision. In the next area, we're just pulling from Rift Warden to Rift Warden, being careful to pull each of these guys close to their respective portals. While trying to pull a bit extra, I accidentally kited the Rift Warden a bit too far away and triggered Destabilized, which you can see here rapidly pulsing damage. Thankfully, I was close enough to pull the Rift Warden back quickly, but you can see how this can easily wipe the group. On the next boss, our lovely cheat button comes back into play. We can simply use AMS to collect the orbs spawned by the boss and prevent the debuff from applying. Beware though that collecting them does still do damage, so if your AMS breaks, then stop touching balls. But we can always pair Vamp Blood with AMS to bolster the shield. Here's a fun little nerdy fact about this interaction. Vamp Blood increases absorb shields by 30%, but it also increases our max health by 30%. This means that AMS double dips from Vampiric Blood, because the shield scales with health, making our AMS shield absorb 400,000. That's almost doubling our health. This next section got a bit messy when I tried to pull 2 Shadow Weaver packs together, but our DK didn't wait for aggro and accidentally pulled with Happy Birthday. Our group then became magnetized to these balls. This remained true for the next boss fight as well. We also had some tentacle trouble since they were mostly being ignored, but we were able to finish it up okay. The last boss went pretty smoothly, despite us missing a lot of the discordant beam casts.
Jesus Christ.
As a tip for this boss, although it stands still for the first few seconds, I recommend pulling it to the center of the room as soon as possible so that the group can avoid the disintegrate beams that spin around the boss.
Another 2-tested key, but still no goddamn loot.
The last key I need to do to have done all 8 dungeons is Skyreach, so we're headed to a +6. In the first area, we had someone fall victim to one of this dungeon's many knockback effects. In this little path, never face your back towards the edge, since there are a bunch of knockback effects. The first boss was just hilarious because people couldn't stop running into tornadoes, but it was only a +6, so it wasn't killing anyone. I see a lot of people tanking this first boss in the middle of a platform, but the problem is that doesn't really help bait Gale Surge casts at all. Instead, I prefer to tank him on the rim and guide him around in a circle so that people can drop coalesced winds behind the boss as we continue around. In this next area, always pull up the left staircase. There are these little birds called Adept of the Dawn on the right side, who will rapidly stack up a debuff on us every time they melee, which gets out of hand super fast. Pretty much any time I mention melee attacks adding a debuff, it means scary danger death. On the second boss, always face the tank buster away from the beams, and don't forget that this is a frontal and can be dodged.
It's fun, Ed.
In this next platform, you can actually hard CC the Mark of Death cast before it goes off. And with a name like Mark of Death, I don't think I need to explain why you want to stop it. On the second boss, try to ping as much as you can for people to LOS during the intermission, but there's only so much we can do, because people often get distracted by the Phoenix ad. For this guy, make sure to grip him if he's about to die near another egg, since if they die too close, it'll reawaken the dead Phoenix. Our evoker nearly flew off the edge, but the dungeon was going great. Only other thing to note is to also go left at this intersection, for the same reasons as before. We were able to just barely 3-chest the key, but I was once again shit out of luck on loot. So finally, what I think many people have been waiting for. We're headed to a +10 key. And trust me, it does not disappoint. Immediately on the first pull, I was feeling the damage. Then, on the second pull, I figured I would do the corner LOS strat that I'm used to, but I guess I should have communicated a bit better. Remember when I said DPS will unload into anything that moves like a horny frat boy? Yeah. I think our R-Druid then got caught up since their hots were ticking, so that's on me. I probably have to double back for aggro every so often with Blood Boil. Alternatively, I could have pulled with Dancing Rune Weapon, since that would have given me extra parry chance and triggered Blood Mist, which would have pulsed damage, helping me maintain aggro. Although BDKs are the kings of self-sustain, I was totally hopeless here. I wish I could say the second attempt went better, but it was pretty much a carbon copy of my first attempt. Well, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, I'm not doing that shit again. So instead, I just split up the hallway into 2 pulls. Not a great start. The next few trash pulls were fine, but our story would come to an end on this first boss. My fatal mistake was running with a hunter. Why was he running around? I don't know, but he ended up beelining for the side of the room I didn't pull, all but guaranteeing a wipe.
A few moments later.
What a nice full circle moment. I went from being a Blood Death Knight hating hunter to a hunter hating Blood Death Knight. Welp, GG indeed, my friend.
But I couldn't just finish the week on a key like that. No, I was gonna pull myself up from the bootstraps and get right back into it. I wasn't gonna fail.
So, with valuable experience, I was headed to a +10 pit. This first pull is nasty. As a reminder, here are the tank busters in this trash pack. AMS can solo all of these, preventing applications of any of these debuffs. God, I love this ability. So here's the beginning of the dungeon. Fantastic start. I continued my regular route, sneaking around from pole to pole, picking up each quarry camp. And hey look, it's an escaping soldier. Surely this guy will be fine. It isn't precariously placed here just to die. Aww. I continued pulling until Lust was back up, but unfortunately, on the first boss, our mage hit Time Warp literal seconds before the exhaustion debuff expired. Also, I learned something totally new in this dungeon, and here is that realization. Oh fuck, there's a forge there? Maybe just me, but this forge is not the most obvious. So still tank the boss behind the ore, just beware that behind is relative to whichever forge he is closest to. So we're headed over to the next boss. Although I didn't need this pack in front for percent, they kind of bleed into the next boss arena, so I wanted to pull them to prevent them from joining the fight. Our damage was fantastic, so the second boss fell over super quickly, and headed up the hill, we have our
Secret tour.
On the last boss, we missed 2 infused bone piles, which you can see already builds up crazy amounts of damage. While the ads can be easily kicked and CC'd, the rot damage is the real danger. One of the coolest techs that I know about as a Death Knight is that you can actually control undead any of these Army of the Dead minions, including the really, really dangerous ones. They won't do nearly as much damage, but it'll completely remove them from the equation. Regardless, we timed our first +10 key, and even 2-chested it. We also got our best in-slot weapon on Heroic track to replace our crappy champ weapon, and hit 2k IO already. While this season's rating is definitely inflated a bit, especially in the beginning, there is a serious drop-off as keys get higher in level. I am both excited and scared for higher keys, but that will have to wait until next time.